really important, but it's rarely anyone's favorite. Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
That's
totally.
Right.
I totally agree. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nopiari. Currently, I'm pursuing MA Education in University of Leeds. And today, I'm going to present you my research project back when I was in my undergrad study entitled The Effectiveness of Animated Videos for Grammar Learning, a quasi-experimental study in a rural Indonesian school. And there are a few points that we're going to discuss today, starting from introduction, background, research gap, methodology, finding discussion, until conclusion. So, for many students, especially in rural areas, grammar lessons feel like eating plain oatmeal every day. It's necessity, but not exactly exciting. Well, in Indonesian context, grammar is one of the national curriculum, the key national curriculum that aims to help the students to be a good communicators in English. However, many students in rural areas feel like learning grammar is really struggling with that and leading to frequent miscommunication, as Al Krasha and ORAC 2021 reported. Moreover, learning English as a foreign language is a long-term process that requires effective strategies. And grammar itself, in particular, is still often seen as difficult, boring, and even disconnected from real communication. And in Indonesian context, particularly in rural Indonesian schools, the issues is more even pronounced because we have limited access to engaging learning materials, teacher-centered instruction with minimal media use, and even low student motivation and participation. So these conditions call for innovative and accessible teaching tools that can tailor to the local context. So what we know about grammar learning strategies actually. So grammar must be explicitly taught in EFL settings, as I here mentioned about in the Indonesian context, in EFL country. So it requires strategies that support understanding, retention, and also motivation. Oxford and Shafradin highlight the importance of cognitive, metacognitive, and social strategies in grammar learning. And in order to do that, Liu et al. In 2021, animation is the sequence of moving images that can support learning by visualizing abstract or dynamic concepts. Also, Pleitner et al. 2021 mentioned that animated videos can help students or the learners mentally represent complex ideas, making them useful for grammar instruction. And there are some studies that have talked about grammar in language learning, such as Abdel Awabdeh in 2017, that they mentioned despite the little use of such technologies, there is still the positive attitudes that both parties have are a factor that could lead to their frequent, regular, and fruitful use. Saidi and Abad in 2016 mentioned students showed a positive attitude to the animated sitcom, as well as its use in teaching conditional sentences. And also there is Arguate in 2009. Animation videos suggest students in retain much more when learning English grammar through animated videos than when learning with traditional methods. However, even though there are globally research about grammar learning and grammar and language learning, but the use of animation itself, there is still a few studies have measured its impact on grammar learning outcomes, especially in rural EFL context. So most of the existing research that we have known in the previous studies, that it more focuses on students' perceptions, motivations, but not exactly the actual performance. Therefore, there is a need for empirical controlled studies that evaluate the effectiveness of animated videos. Is it improving grammar learning? It is helpful for the students and in this kind of context. So this study is really important as it can help to address the inequality between the urban areas and rural areas, and also it can help to create a low scalable media that can be used in the rural classrooms. And those research gaps then arises to this research question. So there are two research questions that arise here. The first one is, do students start using animated videos achieve higher learning outcomes in English grammar compared to students with the traditional method? And the second one, how significant is the effect of animated videos on student learning outcomes in English grammar? And to answer those research questions, I used the quantitative study, particularly the quasi-experimental research, because this kind of method will be practical for real classroom settings, so the pre-assigned classes, and also ethically appropriate, no disruption to students' existing groups, and allows measurable comparison with the pre-test and post-test, and also it is quite common in the classroom-based education research. For the setting and participants, there are a few. This study was conducted at an Islamic junior high school located in Indragiri Huluria province in Indonesia. So just to make a context that this region needs 2 days drive to the capital city of Indonesia, Jakarta, or 6-hour drive to the province capital city, Pekanbaru. So yeah, you can see that how far it is from the big cities or urban areas. And the school here serves students from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, with the majority coming from underprivileged families, and also demonstrating low initial proficiency in English. The population initially, there are 174 8th grade students across 5 classes, but in order to do this research, I did the lottery technique or random sampling technique, and then 2 classes were selected as sample. So there are year 8-1, and the latter will be A group as the experimental group with 38 students. They later be given or receive the grammar instruction with the animated videos. And then year 8-5, letter B group as the control group with 38 students as well, and they will not be given the treatment, so they still use the traditional method during the research. So there are a few instruments used in this study, starting from animated videos, of course, and it developed to support grammar learning. And then for the animated videos, it focused on irregular verbs in past simple tense. And then there are also worksheets to reinforce the grammar topics introduced in the lessons, and also tests that consisted from pre-test until the post-test. And it consists 20 objective questions designed to assess students' grammar understanding before and after the interventions or the treatments. And all test items were validated and found reliable, that already tested by SPSS. So for the data analysis, because I employed the quasi-experimental research, so and then we would do the hypothesis testing. And before doing this hypothesis testing, there are 2 assumption tests were conducted, which are normal test and homogeneity test, to make sure that the test was distributed, normal distributed, and also homogeneous. And all statistical analyses were conducted with SPSS as well. So here's the procedure. As you see here, the procedure for the quasi-experimental research is started with the group A and B, and both of them did the pre-test. So O1 and O3 here, and then after that, both of them will do the treatment. Only one did the treatment, which is the group A, and the group B here is still using the traditional method that usually teacher-centered and without the use of media or any kind of tools. And then after 4 weeks of intervention or treatments, then they did the post-test. So yeah, let's see about this one. Okay, so here's the pre-test scores comparison to see that they already did that. Then the average score or the mean of these both groups, the experimental group have 61 and control group has 62. So we can say that both groups started with similar low scores because they're reflecting their low initial proficiency, as the experimental gets 61 and control groups that get 62. So this supports the fairness of the comparison. And here is just a little bit, just a piece of the videos, only the screenshot of that videos for prepositions of place. And then here is the post-test items. And yeah, we go into the finding and discussion. So what is the result of this study then? And I was just going to the first research questions to share you about the findings and also discuss a little bit about this. So to answer the research question 1, it answered by the comparing the group means for the post-test. They already have the pre-test, and then after the experiment or the treatment, we did the post-test scores, and then here is the result. So you can see that there is a quite high for the experimental group, which they already have the animated videos in their classrooms. They get 84, while the control group with the traditional method gets 70. And this was analyzed with descriptive statistics. So to answer the research question, do students taught using animated videos achieve higher learning outcomes in English grammar compared to those taught using traditional methods? So the answer is yes. And to answer the second research question, that it's a little bit complex, this was the first time as well for me to analyze the data that, it's quite a little bit hard for the undergrad student back when I was in my undergrad. So the second research question here, how significant is the effect of animated videos on students' learning outcomes in English grammar? So I am aware that having the comparison itself is not enough to support that it is really significant. It is only by chance that they have that higher score, but it is proven by this data that I did the hypothesis testing here. So the hypothesis tested in this study are as follows, that we have the null hypothesis. So there is no effect of animated videos on student learning outcomes in English grammar, or the alternative hypothesis, there is an effect of animated videos on student learning outcomes in English grammar. And the result, you can see here that the result is the p-value. It is 0.001, which is less than 0.05. If you still remember about the methodological and quantitative, so if it is less than 0.05, so the null hypothesis is rejected. This one is rejected. So the alternative hypothesis was accepted. So animated videos did have a significant effect. And this is also still the data analysis about the T count and T table. And yeah, so I was just a little bit interpret about the key findings of this research. So the main findings here is the animated videos, yes, significantly improve students' grammar learning outcomes, as you see from the comparison, the descriptive analysis, and also the inferential analysis. And then these research results also supported by previous studies that we have discussed previously. However, there is a conflicting view about this, about the idea of the effectiveness of animated videos in grammar learning. That is, effectiveness can be depends on context. So what works in one classroom, it may not work in another. So there is still giving a context within this kind of idea, as Lin et al. In 2013 reported. So yeah, why it matters? So learning outcomes is not just about scores. It showed that students increase focus and enthusiasm, and then better comprehension to abstract grammar, and also motivation for independent learning. So this study moves beyond student perceptions and investigates actual learning outcomes, offering practical insights for teachers, curriculum designers, and policymakers. And as it is proven effective, so animated videos can offer the scalable local solution to improve grammar learning and under-researched schools especially. And here is the conclusion. I also aware that there is some limitation of this study. Result may not be generalizable to urban schools, and also the treatment that only lasts for only 4 sessions. So yeah, I think that's all. It's cut to you already. Thank you.
So just like usual, is there any questions?
Yeah.
I'm very interested in teaching young learners, so I'd like to ask first, how do you control the classroom atmosphere? How do you regulate students? Can you ensure that the students won't be distracted by the plots of the animated videos, and they're attracted by the plots instead of the grammar. So how do you choose the content of the animated videos? And secondly, you said that it would differ according to the context, but I can't understand why it differs according to the context. Could you explain that to me?
Okay, right, thank you. So to answer the first questions, I haven't explained about the media that I used. That I, of course, at the time, I asked my supervisor about the appropriateness of this study, and as I also did this research for the secondary school. So it's not as really young learners. We talk about young learners could be maybe around 5 to 12 years, but they're around 14 years old. They're still secondary. So yeah, at the time, I can confirm that they have a good focus already. I mean, like they already have their own emotional management, and then I also have discussed that with my supervisor, that the animation here include the contents that talk about the prepositions of place, that also the content itself, it is using the activities that the children usually do in their daily basis, such as in the classroom. They talk about on, in, at, in front of, and they quite focus on that. And to answer the second question, you asked about the context, right? So as Lynn et al. Mentioned that she says that effectiveness here depends on the context, because we cannot assume that all contexts can give exactly same outcomes or results, because I researched in the rural areas. So maybe in another context, such as urban areas, that maybe they have more developed classrooms with advanced technologies, they could have different outcomes or different results. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Sorry. Yeah, we still have 1 minute for one question.
So the exact difference between the control classroom and the experimental one, was it just that they watched the animated videos? Or what was done with the animated videos? What did the teacher do? He didn't just sort of press play and let them watch.
Yeah. So after we watch the videos, there is the worksheet that they discuss, and then and honestly speaking, it's also they try to role play about on. So how is it on? Okay, but just on their seats, so it's they don't really moving.
Right. So
Answer your question.
in the normal traditional control classroom, the traditional classroom, what did they do there?
They just do the I think the teacher just explain what is the preposition of place, and translate. If it is translate, it is really, I don't know, it's make them easier for them to understand. Like on, on is di atas. It's in bahasa which they translated in bahasa Indonesia. So that's how the traditional method. Because I didn't do it by myself, because it was quasi experimental. So I was just giving the ideas to the teachers. I'm there, but I didn't join to teach to the students.
Okay, so everyone, that's all for the session.